Hello, it's Keith here, and this is episode 3 of the Grime 68,000 project. So if you remember, yesterday we just got the title screen and the scrolling text, and so today I've just got these showing here just for my introduction. But you can see we are actually reading in the joystick controls and showing them to screen just for some testing. But this isn't all I've done today. So if I just close these down. Now I haven't finished the title screen, so I've just got it stuck in an infinite loop. But if I remove that infinite loop and start it again, you can see we now have a flying ship, and we can rotate it around. A bit too fast maybe, but we can. And it's shooting as we would expect. And if I press button 3 on this machine, we're now into single fire button mode, which we need for the Amiga and the Atari ST, which often only have a single fire button. So there we go. So this is the state of the game today, and that's the Neo Geo version, but it does work on all of the systems, I believe anyway. So here's the Atari ST version here. I'm just controlling with a single fire button. So anyway, yes, it does seem to work on all the systems just fine, but there's no Grime yet and there's no other gameplay. So, you know, it's progressing, but there's still a lot of work to do. So I thought again we would go through some of the code today and we'll just see what I've done and how it sort of compares. Now, one thing I did omit mentioning yesterday is I have created some macros again just to save me some time because I'm in a bit of a rush. I've created another LDIR command, which is the equivalent of the LDIR command. Very simple in this case. Just a move command here with 2 post increments and a decrement and branch here. Of course, BC will need to be 1 lower than it usually would because, as I said before, dbra doesn't work the same as djnz, so we do have to decrement 1, but basically it's the same command just to save me some time there. I've also created some basic macros just for push and pop. Now, as I said before, I'm simulating the registers. I've got some equivalent registers I'm using as a sort of rule when I'm converting my code. So B and C are D1 and D4 here. So we're pushing these here. Now, I don't think these are actually the most efficient command. I think I could push them in pairs like this, but for now it'll do. I'm just trying to get things working. I'm not trying to make things as fast as I can. So we've got push pop for B, C, D, E, H, L, A, F, only doing A actually. It's quite tricky working with the flags on the 68,000, but to be honest, it's not been a problem for me yet. And then push all and pop all, which does the entire register set. And I often do this for my main functions and things just to make things quick and reduce the amount of bugs. But of course it is wasting some processing power doing that. But anyway, you can see these are just going to help me out a little bit getting the code converted a bit more quickly. So here you can see we're doing things very much the same, and as I've said before, this isn't likely to be the most efficient way of doing things, but my main priority at the moment is to minimize the bugs and just get the game converted. So we've not got the score working yet, so this is disabled. We're using the accumulator, we're using D0 as the accumulator here, just loading in the number of lives. I've added a clear screen command because the clear screen command here is clearing the tile map, whereas I was actually needing to clear the screen just to get rid of any junk on the bottom of the screen outside of the tile map, so that was the reason for that. And then we're just doing basically all the same commands as you can see here, using D0 instead of the accumulator. As I said yesterday, the orientation of commands in 68,000 is the left hand side is the source and the right is the destination, whereas in Z80 the left is the destination and the right is the source, so that's why these are backwards. But apart from that, I'm using clear B as a quick way of clearing this D0. But again, I could have just moved a 0 in the single command here, or even cleared this this memory address here. So I'm still being very inefficient. It's, as I say, my main priority is just getting the game working first, and then I'll worry about optimization and things. I do have to be honest and say I'm not really that familiar with the 68,000 language yet. There are some limitations, some combinations of commands you can and cannot do. I believe things like load move Q, I think you can only do at the long level maybe or something. There's some command that only that doesn't work at the byte level, and it kind of caught me out the other day. So as I say, and sometimes I'm using very inefficient commands just to get things moving quickly so that I don't have any debugging and things. Anyway, so we're loading in the X and Y here into D1 and D4, which again, as I say, if you look here, these are D1 is my B and D4 is my C in my virtual registers here. All of this code doesn't work yet. This is the death code, the player can't die yet. And then if we get down to read controls dual. So read control dual and read both controls is almost the same. The only difference is this actually loads straight into H, whereas read controls dual reads the player's controls into the accumulator. So I've just had to make a slight change there. But then basically we're the same here. Bit test is the equivalent of this bit command here. Apart from that, it's basically the same. You can see I've actually skipped a command here. These have been merged into the same command, which in all honesty is what I should be doing all along. As I say, in most cases I'm just doing things as literally as possible just to reduce bugs. So you can see bit test here with D3, which is the equivalent of bit key map up H, very similar. Branch non-equals is jump NZ, branch equals is jump Z. I mean, really, you can see it's actually surprising just how similar it is, to be honest. DEC is the equivalent of sub Q #1, D4, blah, 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 blah. Of course, all of these are very much mimics of each other. Once you've seen one, there's not much to see to the other ones. And there's the 2 fire button mode version here. Again, not much to see really, in all honesty. So you can see the compare command here, D6. Of course, you can compare any register here, so I don't need to load L into the accumulator here. So I'm actually just incrementing D6, which is my equivalent of the L register here. And then we're just comparing 2D6 here and branching if not equals. So as I say, comparisons on Z80, you have to compare to the accumulator, but as I've said many times, 68,000, there is no accumulator. All 8 of the main registers, D0 to D7, are equals. They can all do the same commands. So, you know, not much too exciting there. And then when we get down to here, we're just, you know, checking the player's position and seeing if the player has moved. Where are we? I'm sorry, I'm a bit far ahead there. And then we're checking if the player's moved. We're removing the old tile here. You can see I'm using a clear command rather than loading a 0 here, but it's all the same. And then basically, you know, very similar. I mean, again here, there's 4 commands here and just 2 commands here, which is where you can see how 68,000 is more efficient. And, you know, it's not just a case that the process is much faster, it's actually a more efficient language as well. And then the bullet recalculation code in comparing here, and then moving the bullet using inks and decks, which become sub Qs and add Qs here. And then we're doing comparisons just to see if we've gone off the screen here, which are the equivalent of these here. And then again, we're just moving the player direction to the bullet and the player position to the bullet to restart the bullet. But again, we're able to merge these 2 commands here into this 1 command here. Very nice, much more efficient. Here's the bullet draw code. So again, not much to see really. And I think that's all we've really done today. So not too much maybe. And I was quite pleased with it because the thing you have to understand when you're converting a large amount of code like this, when I'm writing a game from scratch, I'll probably add one small module of sometimes just 10 lines or something, and test it, check it works, make it bigger, make it more complex. But when you're doing something like this, I couldn't test it until I'd basically done all of the code. So you know, I think I managed to get some of the movement to work on its own. But what I'm still trying to say is, there's times where you don't know if any of it works until you know all of it works, and so if a bug crops in, you end up with a lot of problems debugging it, especially when with 68,000 there's still a very serious risk that there's things I simply don't know about the language yet. And you know, I might be trying to, like the bit test command, I have used it before, but I was a bit hazy on how it works, where, you know, what position does the bit have to be. On the 6502 you have to compare a memory location with the bit mask to a register, and so I was worried that it might be the same as that, where I was going to have to actually have the bit patterns within some area of the code rather than just being a numeric one, which isn't the case. I mean, obviously the 68,000 uses the bit test command, the same as the bit command. You simply specify a number. So that was a pleasant surprise in that it worked the way that I was more familiar with the Z80, but I didn't know that for sure until today. So as I say, I'm still learning as I'm doing this, which is maybe part of the enjoyment if you're watching, to see, you know, what kind of mess ups I end up in or what I learn along the way. Anyway, so that's what the state of the code is today. So what's coming tomorrow? Well, Obviously, I think we need some Grime, don't we? Because otherwise the game's not going to work very well. So I'll start coding in the Grime. If I also have time, maybe I'll try and get the scores and the lives in. But basically, hopefully by tomorrow, it will actually start to look like something that's playable rather than just a very simple tech demo, which is all it is at the moment. Anyway, that's enough for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to see more, of course, there's Grime 6502 and Grime Z80, so please check those out. The next video will be uploaded to Patreon tomorrow or onto YouTube in a week's time. Thanks for watching today's, and goodbye.